Recording in progress. isang rehistradong botante para sa May 9, 2022 elections? Narito ang 12 bagay na hindi mo dapat gawin bago, sa araw mismo at pagkatapos ng eleksyon batay sa Omnibus Election Code at sa mga panuntunan ng Commission on Elections. Huwag ibenta ang iyong boto. Ang pagbili ng boto o pagbenta ng boto ay mahigpit na ipinagbabawal sa ilalim ng Omnibus Election Code. Ito ay may kaukulang parusa ng pagkakakulong mula 1 hanggang 6 na taon, pagkadiskwalipika sa pagsilbi sa isang pampublikong posisyon at pagkawala ng karapatang bumoto. Ang isang partidong politikal na mapapatunayang bumili o nagbenta ng boto ay pamumultahin na hindi bababa sa 10,000 piso. Huwag pagpustahan ang resulta ng eleksyon. Ang kahit na anong pera o bagay na may halaga na itinaya sa pustahan para sa resulta ng eleksyon ay mapupunta sa estado. Huwag pilitin o takutin ang iyong mga subordinates, kabilang ang mga miyembro ng parokya o simbahan, mga kasambahay, o mga nangungupahan para ikampanya o iboto o hindi iboto ang isang kandidato. Huwag pilitin o takutin sa direkta o hindi direktang paraan ang kahit na sinong opisyal o kawani para sa eleksyon. Huwag magdala ng baril sa labas ng iyong bahay o lugar ng trabaho. Kahit na ikaw ang may permit to carry, kailangan mo pa rin ng sulat mula sa COMELEC na nagsasaad na ikaw ay maaaring magbitbit ng baril sa labas. Huwag bumoto ng higit sa 1 beses sa isang eleksyon. Huwag bumoto kung ikaw ay hindi rehistradong botante. Ang double voting o mas kilala sa tawag na flying voter ay may kaukulang parusa ng pagkabilanggo ng hanggang 6 na taon at multa na hanggang 10,000 piso. Huwag bumoto bilang kahalili ng isang rehistradong botante kahit pa may pahintulot. Huwag gumamit ng ibang balota maliban sa ibibigay ng Board of Election Inspectors. Ipinagbabawal din ang pagkakaroon ng higit sa isang official ballot. Huwag pikturan ang iyong balota. Hindi rin pinapayagan ang mag-selfie kasama ng iyong balota. Huwag magbitbit ng nakamamatay na armas sa loob ng presinto kung saan ka boboto at sa loob ng radius na 100 metro mula sa presinto sa araw ng eleksyon. Huwag magbenta, mag-alok, bumili, maghain, o kumuha ng alak at iba pang nakakalasing ng inumin 1 araw bago ang eleksyon at sa mismong araw ng eleksyon. Ang mga hotels at establisimento lamang na pinapayagan ng Department of Tourism na magsilbi ng alak sa mga dayuhang turista ang maaaring di masaklawan ng liquor ban. Huwag magdaos o makilahok sa sabong, boxing, karera ng kabayo, hay-alay at iba pang kahalintulad na laro sa araw ng eleksyon. Bawat boto ay mahalaga at ang isang boto ay maaaring magresulta sa 6 na taon na maayos na pamamalakad ng gobyerno at matatag na ekonomiya o 6 na taon na talamak ang korupsyon, mataas ang porsyento ng mga walang trabaho at mas laganap na kahirapan. Protektahan mo ang iyong kinabukasan sa pamamagitan ng hindi pagbenta ng iyong boto. Tandaan, huwag matakot bumoto at bumoto ng tama. Painit ng painit ang nalalapit na eleksyon. Pero hindi dapat kalimutan na tayo ay nasa gitna pa ng pandemya at may mga nagsusulputang variants ng COVID-19 na posibleng mas malala. Pakikipagkamay, beso-beso, selfies, may mahigpit na paalala si Commission on Elections spokesman James Jimenez.
Well, napakahalaga kasi na panatiliin nating ang seguridad ng ating mga mamamayan. Alam naman natin na during the campaign period, talagang ang posibleng tamaan ng COVID no, dahil dito nga sa ongoing na pandemic natin, ay hindi naman yung mga kandidato o yung kanilang mga campaign staff, kundi yung mga taong nag-a-attend sa kanilang mga rally. Kaya napakahalaga na pangalagaan natin ang kanilang kalusugan. And this responsibility falls squarely on the shoulders of the candidates and their campaign teams.
Narito ang mga panuntunang itinakda ng COMELEC sa ilalim ng Resolution number 10732 kung paano matitiyak na ang mga campaign activities para sa May 9, 2022 na eleksyon ay hindi maging COVID super spreader events. Lahat ng kandidato at kanilang mga campaign support staff ay itinuturing na authorized persons outside of residence or APOR kahit ano paman ang alert level system at kanilang vaccination status. Ang face-to-face sorties, rallies, conventions, motorcades, caravans at meeting de avance ay pinapayagan lamang sa mga lugar na nasa ilalim ng alert levels 1, 2 at 3. Ang mga batang maedad 17 pababa at mga nakatatandang maedad 66 pataas at ang may mga kondisyong medikal, kabilang na ang mga buntis, ay bawal dumalo sa mga ganitong aktibidad.
At huwag nating kakalimutan yung mga selfie, mga pagkamay-kamay, pagyakap-yakap, beso-beso. Saglit lang yan. No? Wala pang ilang segundo yan, tapos na yan, lumipas na. Pero pag kayo ay nagkasakit, dahil dyan, pag kayo ay nagka-COVID, mahabang gamutan yan, mahabang bubuluin ng inyong kalusugan yan. At hindi lang yan, pati ng inyong finances. Napakamahal magkasakit ngayon. So, wag nating isasang-alang sa kakunting enjoyment yung mas mahabang problema ng COVID.
Ang indoor campaign ay hindi pinapayagan sa mga lugar na nasa ilalim ng Alert Level 4. Mga outdoor na aktibidad lamang na nasa 30% capacity ang pinapayagan. Kahit na anong meeting, convention, rally, motorcade, caravan o meeting de avance ay hindi pinapayagan sa mga lugar na nasa ilalim ng Alert Level 5. Ang mga kandidato o ang kanilang mga campaign support staff ay pinagbabawalang gawin ang mga sumusunod. Huwag pumasok sa pribadong pamamahay habang nagsasagawa ng house-to-house campaign kahit pa pumayag ang may-ari ng bahay. Bawal ang pakipagkamay, pagyakap, beso-beso o kahit na anong physical contact sa kandidato o mga kasama nila at sa publiko. Bawal ang makipag-selfie o pagkuha ng litrato na lalabag sa social distancing protocols. Bawal mamahagi ng pagkain o inumin upang maiwasang magtanggal ng face mask ang mga tao.
Ang ating kalusugan at kasiguruhan sa panahon ng pandemya ay nakasalalay sa individual na pananagutan or individual responsibility. Kailangan tayo maging responsible tayo sa sarili nating mga gawa. Kung tayo ay magbibehave in a safe manner, magiging safe tayo lahat. Kung tayo mismo ang lalabag sa mga protocols na itinakda ng ating health authorities, talagang tataas ang tsansa ng infection, no, in our population. So, kailangan doon sa mga botante, doon sa mga nanonood ng mga rally, kayo mismo, magkusa kayo na huwag ninyong gagawin yan.
Tandaan, ang paglabag sa mga health protocols sa mga aktibidad na may kinalaman sa eleksyon ay itinuturing na election offense. Ang mga lalabag sa panuntunang itinakda ay nahaharap sa hanggang 6 na taong pagkabilanggo at multa na hindi bababa sa 10,000 piso. Maaari ding mawala ang karapatang bumoto pag ikaw ay nahatulang guilty sa paglabag sa mga protocols. Tunay na mahirap ang pangangampanya para sa eleksyon, pero sa gitna ng patuloy na public health crisis, ito ay higit pang naging masalimuot. Ang mga kandidato, ang kanilang campaign staff at ang publiko ay marapat na piliin lagi ang kaligtasan at kalusugan una sa lahat. Tandaan, huwag matakot bumoto at bumoto ng tama. Kung ikaw ay nakakita ng aktibidad na lumalabag sa mga naturang panuntunan sa iyong lugar, huwag mag-atubiling magsumbong sa COMELEC sa kanilang Facebook, Twitter at mobile. Kada eleksyon, pumipili ang sambayanang Pilipino ng susunod na lider ng bansa, ng taong magtatakda ng plano at polisiya para sa 6 na taon ng ating kinabukasan. Pero ano nga ba ang hinahanap natin sa isang leader? Sa anong mga kwalifikasyon natin titimbangin ang mga kandidatong nanliligaw para sa matamis nating boto?
Dapat ang leader natin matapang, walang uurungan.
Ang gusto kong kandidato ay yung magaling sumayaw at entertaining.
Gusto ko yung matikas, yung magaling magdala ng sarili.
Sana yung susunod na presidente mayaman na para hindi na mangurakot.
Alam mo bang base sa ating konstitusyon, 5 lang ang kwalifikasyon para sa mga nagnanais tumakbong presidente ng Pilipinas? Una, kailangan natural-born citizen ng Pilipinas. Ikalawa, kailangang rehistradong botante. Ikatlo, marunong bumasa at magsulat. Ika-4, nasa edad na 40 sa araw ng eleksyon. At ika-5, residente ng Pilipinas sa loob ng 10 taon bago ang eleksyon. Simple, hindi ba? Walang itinatakdang kwalifikasyon base sa edukasyon, work experience o kayamanan. Pero simple nga bang tunay ang mga dapat nating hanapin sa susunod na leader ng ating bansa? Ayon kay Commission on Elections spokesperson James Jimenez, marami pa tayong pwede at dapat hanapin.
Very basic o payak ang ating requirements. Ibig pa sabihin nito na yan lang ang kailangan nating hanapin? Siyempre hindi. Yan ang tinatawag nating minimum. Pwede kang maghanap ng mas lampas pa dyan. No? Halimbawa, maghanap ka ng taong merong integridad. Gawin mong necessary ingredient yan. Gawin mong kalakip yan ng pagpili mo kung sino magiging pangulo. Kailangan may integridad, kailangan may kakayanan, kailangan magaling, kailangan matalino, at kailangan nagsasabi ng katotohanan sa bayan. Kasi ang pipiliin natin ay hindi lang basta-bastang tao. Leader natin ang pipiliin natin. Leader natin na bibigyan natin ng napakalaking kapangyarihan. Kapangyarihan over our lives, over our livelihoods, over our country. So, bagaman maliit or payak lamang ang requirements ng konstitusyon, kailangan tayo bilang botante, pag boboto na tayo, kailangan medyo mas mataas naman ang standards natin.
Tunay na marami tayong dapat hanapin na katangian sa susunod na leader ng bayan. Ngayon, higit kailanman, kailangan nating maging mapanuri.
Sa tingin ko bilang botante, kailangan maging mas mapanuri tayo dahil hindi biro ang halalan. Hindi biro ang hinihingi niya sa atin ng mga kandidato niyan. Gusto nila maging leader natin. Gusto nila magkaroon ng kapangyarihan sa ating kabuhayan, sa ating buhay, sa ating bansa. At dahil dyan, kailangan natin maging mapanuri. Kung jowa mo nga lang pinadadaan mo sa butas ng karayom bago mo sagutin, paano pa kaya yung mga elected leaders natin na may tunay na kapangyarihan sa iyo?
Sabi nga ni Director Jimenez, kung kinikilatis nating maigi ang isang potensyal na jowa bago ibigay ang matamis nating oo, mas lalong higit na dapat nating kilatisin ang mga nanliligaw para sa makapangyarihan nating boto.
Hindi pa kami pwedeng bumoto.
Kaya sana pumili kayo ng tama para sa aming kinabukasan.
Tandaan, huwag matakot bumoto at bumoto ng tama. Painit ng painit ang nalalapit na eleksyon. Pero hindi dapat kalimutan na tayo ay nasa gitna pa ng pandemya at may mga nagsusulputang variants ng COVID-19 na posibleng mas malala. Pakikipagkamay, beso-beso, selfies, may mahigpit na paalala si Commission on Election spokesman James Jimenez.
Well, napakahalaga kasi na panatiliin nating ang seguridad ng ating mga mamamayan. Alam naman natin na during the campaign period, talagang ang posibleng tamaan ng COVID, dahil dito nga sa ongoing na pandemic natin, ay hindi naman yung mga kandidato o yung kanilang mga campaign staff, kundi yung mga taong nag-a-attend sa kanilang mga rally. Kaya napakahalaga na pangalagaan natin ang kanilang kalusugan. And this responsibility falls squarely on the shoulders of the candidates and their campaign teams.
Narito ang mga panuntunang itinakda ng COMELEC sa ilalim ng Resolution number 10732 kung paano matitiyak na ang mga campaign activities para sa May 9, 2022 na eleksyon ay hindi maging COVID super spreader events. Lahat ng kandidato at kanilang mga campaign support staff ay itinuturing na authorized persons outside of residence or APOR kahit ano paman ang alert level system at kanilang vaccination status. Ang face-to-face sorties, rallies, conventions, motorcades, caravans at meeting the avance ay pinapayagan lamang sa mga lugar na nasa ilalim ng alert levels 1, 2 at 3. Ang mga batang may edad 17 pababa at mga nakatatandang may edad 66 pataas at ang may mga kondisyong medikal, kabilang na ang mga buntis, ay bawal dumalo sa mga ganitong aktibidad.
At huwag nating kakalimutan yung mga selfie, mga pagkamay-kamay, pagyakap-yakap, beso-beso. Saglit lang yan. Wala pang ilang segundo yan, tapos na yan, lumipas na. Pero pag kayo ay nagkasakit, dahil dyan, pag kayo ay nagka-COVID, mahabang gamutan yan, mahabang bubuluin ng inyong kalusugan yan, at hindi lang yan, pati ng inyong finances. Napakamahal magkasakit ngayon. So, wag nating isasang-alang sa kakunting enjoyment yung mas mahabang problema ng COVID.
Ang indoor campaign ay hindi pinapayagan sa mga lugar na nasa ilalim ng Alert Level 4. Mga outdoor na aktibidad lamang na nasa 30% capacity ang pinapayagan. Kahit na anong meeting, convention, rally, motorcade, caravan o meeting de avance ay hindi pinapayagan sa mga lugar na nasa ilalim ng Alert Level 5. Ang mga kandidato o ang kanilang mga campaign support staff ay pinagbabawalang gawin ang mga sumusunod. Huwag pumasok sa pribadong pamamahay habang nagsasagawa ng house-to-house campaign kahit pa pumayag ang may-ari ng bahay. Bawal ang pakipagkamay, pagyakap, beso-beso o kahit na anong physical contact sa kandidato o mga kasama nila at sa publiko. Bawal ang makipag-selfie o pagkuha ng litrato na lalabag sa social distancing protocols. Bawal mamahagi ng pagkain o inumin upang maiwasang magtanggal ng face mask ang mga tao.
Ang ating kalusugan at kasiguruhan sa panahon ng pandemya ay nakasalalay sa individual na pananagutan or individual responsibility. Kailangan tayo maging responsible tayo sa sarili nating mga gawa. Kung tayo ay magbe-behave in a safe manner, magiging safe tayo lahat. Kung tayo mismo ang lalabag sa mga protocols na itinakda ng ating health authorities, talagang tataas ang tsansa ng infection in our population. So, kailangan doon sa mga botante, doon sa mga nanonood ng mga rally, kayo mismo, magkusa kayo na huwag ninyong gagawin yan.
Tandaan, ang paglabag sa mga health protocols sa mga aktibidad na may kinalaman sa eleksyon ay itinuturing na election offense. Ang mga lalabag sa panuntunang itinakda ay nahaharap sa hanggang 6 na taong pagkabilanggo at multa na hindi bababa sa 10,000 piso. Maaari ding mawala ang karapatang bumoto pag ikaw ay nahatulang guilty sa paglabag sa mga protocols. Tunay na mahirap ang pangangampanya para sa eleksyon, pero sa gitna ng patuloy na public health crisis, ito ay higit pang naging masalimuot. Ang mga kandidato, ang kanilang campaign staff at ang publiko ay marapat na piliin lagi ang kaligtasan at kalusugan una sa lahat. Tandaan, huwag matakot bumoto at bumoto ng tama. Kung ikaw ay nakakita ng aktibidad na lumalabag sa mga naturang panuntunan sa iyong lugar, huwag mag-atubiling magsumbong sa COMELEC sa kanilang Facebook, Twitter at mobile. Kada eleksyon, pumipili ang sambayanang Pilipino ng susunod na lider ng bansa, ng taong magtatakda ng plano at polisiya para sa 6 na taon ng ating kinabukasan. Pero ano nga ba ang hinahanap natin sa isang lider? Sa anong mga kwalifikasyon natin titimbangin ang mga kandidatong nanliligaw para sa matamis nating boto?
Dapat ang leader natin matapang, walang uurungan.
Ang gusto kong kandidato ay yung magaling sumayaw at entertaining.
Gusto ko yung matikas, yung magaling magdala ng sarili.
Sana yung susunod na presidente mayaman na para hindi na mangurakot.
Alam mo bang base sa ating konstitusyon, 5 lang ang kwalifikasyon para sa mga nagnanais tumakbong presidente ng Pilipinas? Una, kailangan natural-born citizen ng Pilipinas. Ikalawa, kailangang rehistradong botante. Ikatlo, marunong bumasa at magsulat. Ika-4, nasa edad na 40 sa araw ng eleksyon. At ika-5, residente ng Pilipinas sa loob ng 10 taon bago ang eleksyon. Simple, hindi ba? Walang itinatakdang kwalifikasyon base sa edukasyon, work experience o kayamanan. Pero simple nga bang tunay ang mga dapat nating hanapin sa susunod na leader ng ating bansa? Ayon kay Commission on Elections spokesperson James Jimenez, marami pa tayong pwede at dapat hanapin.
Very basic o payak ang ating requirements. Ibig pa sabihin nito na yan lang ang kailangan nating hanapin? Siyempre hindi. Yan ang tinatawag nating minimum. Pwede kang maghanap ng mas lampas pa dyan. No? Halimbawa, maghanap ka ng taong merong integridad. Gawin mong necessary ingredient yan. Gawin mong kalakip yan ng pagpili mo kung sino magiging pangulo. Kailangan may integridad, kailangan may kakayanan, kailangan magaling, kailangan matalino, at kailangan nagsasabi ng katotohanan sa bayan. Kasi ang pipiliin natin ay hindi lang basta-bastang tao. Leader natin ang pipiliin natin. Leader natin na bibigyan natin ng napakalaking kapangyarihan. Kapangyarihan over our lives, over our livelihoods, over our country. So, bagaman maliit or payak lamang ang requirements ng konstitusyon, kailangan tayo bilang botante, pag boboto na tayo, kailangan medyo mas mataas naman ang standards natin.
Tunay na marami tayong dapat hanapin na katangian sa susunod na leader ng bayan. Ngayon, higit kailanman, kailangan nating maging mapanuri.
Sa tingin ko bilang botante, kailangan maging mas mapanuri tayo dahil hindi biro ang halalan. Hindi biro ang hinihingi niya sa atin ng mga kandidatong yan. Gusto nila maging leader natin. Gusto nila magkaroon ng kapangyarihan sa ating kabuhayan, sa ating buhay, sa ating bansa. At dahil dyan, kailangan natin maging mapanuri. Kung jowa mo nga lang pinadadaan mo sa butas ng karayom bago mo sagutin, paano pa kaya yung mga elected leaders natin na may tunay na kapangyarihan sa iyo?
Sabi nga ni Director Jimenez, kung kinikilatis nating maigi ang isang potensyal na jowa bago ibigay ang matamis nating oo, mas lalong higit na dapat nating kilatisin ang mga nanliligaw para sa makapangyarihan nating boto.
Hindi pa kami pwedeng bumoto.
Kaya sana pumili kayo ng tama para sa aming kinabukasan.
Tandaan, huwag matakot bumoto at bumoto ng tama.
hapon.
Magandang hapon.
Magandang hapon din.
Magandang hapon. Good afternoon,
Good
Philippines, and
afternoon.
good afternoon, world. Why? Because we have some foreigners joining us today. Hi,
Hapon.
Sir Ben. Hi, Uriel. I see you right now. Thanks for joining us today. And for those who are watching us live on Facebook, thanks very much for joining us for this World Press Freedom Day celebration. Hi, Joyce. Hi, Sir Rolly. Hi to the PTA Board of Trustees.
Good
to our
afternoon,
members,
everyone.
to the JSAP members and board, of course. Maraming salamat. And Seidel Foundation. And while we're waiting for the others to come in and join us in the meeting room, I think we have to, as we celebrate Press Freedom Day, Joyce, let's have a moment of silence to pray for those journalists around the world who died in defense of press freedom. Amen. Amen. Good afternoon. Happy World Press Freedom Day. Are we truly happy? Let's talk about it later. Are we content with the freedoms we have today? Joyce, right? For the first time, after so many celebrations of World Press Freedom, we're going to have a different take on World Press Freedom. At least the one we are organizing today under the Philippine Press Institute with support from Seidel Foundation in partnership with, of course, with the Journalism Studies Association.
Sir, BMP rin.
Why is it going to be different, Joyce? Why do you think?
Oh, sorry. We have a very different forum today on World Press Freedom. Yeah, nakapag-video na. Because it's exciting. This will be a day of resibo.
Yeah.
Diba? Usong-uso yung term na resibo ng very millennial. So we're adopting it. We actually invited our presidential candidates to join us today through a video message or either through sending a representative to attend our forum. At hihingan natin sila ng resibo kung ano ang polisiya nila. Sorry, because we have
English.
Foreigner.
Speak English.
Speak English, sorry. We will ask for their commitment as to press freedom and freedom of expression should they win in the May 9 elections, which is about 7 days to go, 7 days
Correct.
from now.
Truly, it comes at the most opportune time to actually challenge the presidentiables and their spokespersons if they cannot, some of them could not actually be on live during the Zoom meeting, but they've sent actual messages. So as we look forward to the forthcoming elections, we also think about the commitment, as Joyce said, about press freedom, not only in the Philippines, but I think as we talk about press freedom around the world, let's see how they think of our work as committed journalists and media practitioners in defense of press freedom. Let us start, Joyce. We officially open the program. Good afternoon, everyone. As I said, this World Press Freedom Day celebration forum is being brought to you by the Philippine Press Institute, the National Association of Newspapers, with support from Seidel Foundation in partnership with the Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines. Please welcome the Chairman President of the Philippine Press Institute, also publisher of Manila Standard, Mr. Rolando Rolly Estabilio. Hi, sir. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just start off with by greeting presidential candidate Calyodi de Guzman, chairperson, Bukluran ng Manggagawang Pilipino, Mr. Barry Gutierrez, spokesperson of BP Leni Robredo, Attorney Goetz Henneke, Resident Representative to the Philippines, Seidel Foundation, Professor Cherry Pebre, Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines Secretary, Assistant Professor Luis Tangi, JSF Chair, Mr. Jonathan De Santos, and UJP, Ms. Amalia Cabusaw, PPI Vice Chairman, and Mindanao Trustee, and Editor-in-Chief of Mindanao Times, Professor Roland Simbulan, Political Analyst and former UP Faculty Regent, Professor Christian Esguerra, JSAP Auditor. Good afternoon, everyone. We are gathered here today as part of a global event to mark the World Press Freedom Day 2022 with the theme Journalism Under Digital Shades. UNESCO and the Republic of Uruguay host the annual Global Conference in Punta del Este, Uruguay from May 2 to 5. UNESCO has hailed today's milestone as a celebration of the fundamental principles of press freedom around the world, aiming to defend media from attacks on their independence and pay tribute to journalists who have lost their lives in the line of duty. Furthermore, the day draws attention to remind governments of the need to respect their commitment to press freedom and, among media practitioners, to reflect on issues of press freedom and professional ethics. This year's observance of World Press Freedom Day thus put forth how disinformation and surveillance have grown in this digital age. Governments around the world are increasingly using social media to manipulate elections and monitor their citizens, a worrisome trend for democracy. An annual report on online freedom by Freedom House, a nonprofit advocacy group, found evidence of advanced media surveillance programs in at least 40 of 65 countries analyzed. The report said global media freedom declined consecutively over the years as authorities in some countries simply cut off internet access as part of their manipulation efforts, while others employed propaganda armies of trolls to distort information on social platforms. As observed by the Freedom House, many governments are finding that in social media, propaganda works is better than censorship. Indeed, populists and authoritarians around the globe are exploiting both human nature and computer algorithm to conquer ballot box, running roughshod over rules designed to ensure free and fair elections. Disinformation is the most commonly used tactic to undermine elections. Populists and far-right leaders have grown adept not only at creating viral disinformation, but also at harnessing networks that disseminate it. Data shows that in 47 out of 65 countries, individuals were arrested for political, social, or religious speech, with some subjected to physical violence for their activities on media. A global survey found that media freedom declined in 33 of 65 countries assessed. In the Philippine settings, we are no strangers to this grim situation. In fact, efforts to suppress press freedom have given rise to voices here and abroad to condemn them. The Maguindanao massacre, wherein a good number of our colleagues were killed, has put the Philippines one of the most dangerous places for journalists to work in. And the killings continue to this day. So too, disinformation and fake news abound and swirl in both traditional and social media, but the latter is mainly the trigger platform. It is no surprise that trust in media in general has been put into question on many occasions. This only adds to journalists' woes to compete with bloggers and trolls in the flow of information, given the speed and volume of digital devices to enhance their ability to influence events. So today's event could not have come at a more opportune time, more so with the crucial forthcoming national and local elections. As we speak, truth is overwhelmed by a cacophony of false information that helps frustrate the will of the people to elect rightful leaders for the next 6 years. It is incumbent on those who believe in a democratic way of life to push back and regain control of the ever-advancing nature of surveillance technology in the hands of the state and its allies. To be sure, Your discussion will bring to light some vital information to the industry future. In particular, we are all aware how the newspaper business is without doubt declining as time passes by. With the advancement of internet, baits for advertising, rapid plans for corporate owners, and social media, not only newspapers but news and journalism as a whole are subject to change. How citizens want to see their news is entirely up to them. But the media not only reflects what the readers want, but it also shapes it. So perhaps prospect may not look so bad for the print newspaper if they use their influence as an opportunity. Equally important is how journalists carry themselves in the practice of their profession. Trust is at the heart of every report, and it starts with you observing the ethical standards of journalism. Looking inward gives us a deeper insight into the world around us that leads to honest reporting and respect for one's work. Above all, it gives us the courage and will to uphold press freedom against all odds. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Sir Rolly, Chairman and President of the Philippine Press Institute, for setting the tone for this event. Maraming salamat for joining us today. My name is Ariel Cisabilin. I'm the Executive Director and Trustee of the Philippine Press Institute. At this point, as we thank Seidel Foundation for supporting this world event, if I must say, I'd like to call one of the project directors of Seidel Foundation on behalf of its resident representative to the Philippines. Please welcome Caroline Lee. Hi, Carol. Good afternoon.
Hello, Ariel. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes. Loud and
Okay. Yes. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Rolando G. Estabillo, PPI Chairman, Professor Cherry Pebra, the Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines Secretary, and of course, Assistant Professor Lucia Tangi, Chair of the Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines, or the JSAP. This is a long-awaited activity, and we're really happy to be witnessing the actual conduct of the activity this afternoon. I'm Caroline Lee, Program Coordinator of the Seidel Foundation. Our resident representative, Mr. Gutscheinecke, would have wanted to join us, but he extends his warm regards. And of course, a good afternoon to our panel of esteemed reactors, comprising our colleagues in the journalism community and the academe. And of course, we have our other members of the board of the JSAP. So for those who are hearing about the Seidel Foundation for the first time, the Seidel Foundation is a German non-government organization that has been involved in development project cooperation projects in the Philippines for more than 40 years now. Basically, building up democracy and good governance. And with today's topic, we have World Press Freedom Day Forum. We'll be discussing about this will be discussing about the journalism under surveillance, and this gives us an idea of how important this activity is, especially right now, as we are about to have our elections in, Ariel mentioned earlier, around 7 days. The World Press Freedom Day is a day that is celebrated by countries across the globe. And they say that a free press is fundamental to a democratic society. But what does it mean? So we're really glad to be working with the Philippine Press Institute today, and of course the JSAP, to be bringing this topic to the fore, to discuss what does this really mean, especially in the information landscape of today. The media landscape has largely pushed into cyberspace. And earlier, Mr. Estabilio mentioned about how social media may be used to influence narratives. So if there is censorship, what does that mean? How is that affecting press, the free press? What does surveillance mean? So how is this impact making an impact on the freedom of expression of the press? We look forward to these being taken up today. And of course, with regards to the elections, the Anzala Foundation being a foreign organization, we maintain an apolitical position about the topic, and that is actually a decision to be made by the Filipino citizens themselves. So with that, I wish everybody a fruitful discussion, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Carol. Thanks, Hansel Foundation. And hi to Attorney Guts Heineke. See you next time in our activities next month. All right. At this point, I'd like to call the Secretary of the Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines, Professor Cherry Pebre.
Yeah, good afternoon, Sir Ariel. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to Sir Rolando Estabilio, the PPI Chairman and Publisher of Manila Standard, and also to Attorney Goetz Heineke, the President Representative of the Philippines, HSF, and of course to all the representatives and spokespersons of our presidential board. And I know some of them will be joining us later. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. And also to our KJSAP, to the students, faculty, practitioners, media practitioners, everyone in this room, good afternoon. And maayong udto sa mga Kabisayaan. Historically, the concept of media freedom has been associated with the freedom of journalists from the control, censorship, or harassment of the state and other powerful interests, including advertisers. It also extends in the digital age to the freedom to publish and distribute content on the internet. It implies a legal and statutory environment that allows journalistic institutions to pursue transparency, accountability, and public interest as a matter of free expression. This requires protection for the profession from undue restrictions or legal threats. The theme for this year's World Press Freedom Day celebration is Journalists Under Surveillance. In the past, we have seen how many journalists were tailed and eventually physically harassed for reporting the truth. Surveillance of journalists has also leveled up with the digital age. We have seen how our journalists have been attacked on the digital platforms by trolls and by the hackers. There is also a growing trend worldwide on the use of spyware to silence journalists. Spywares have the potential to expose the sources of journalists, their movement, or the other information, rather private information that could be used to censor or obstruct them. The Committee to Protect Journalists has also found that these attacks often go hand in hand with other press freedom violations and hinder journalists' ability to cover important stories on issues like politics and corruption. Since this year World Press Freedom Day celebration comes a week before the May 2022 election, the Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines Incorporated has decided to partner with the Philippine Press Institute PPI to make today's forum as a venue to scrutinize the media freedom agenda of our presidential candidates. We will also unveil the Media Freedom Declaration to ensure that we will continue to protect and fight for media freedom whoever wins in the election. Let us all be reminded that media freedom is not exclusively limited to media institutions, but rather covers all individuals or institutions using media platforms. Let every day be a World Press Freedom Day. Again, maayong udto kaninyong tanan.
Thanks very much, Professor Pebre. Joining me today is PPA Seminar Director, also News Editor of Manila Standard. Please welcome Joyce Pañares as my co-host and co-moderator for this event. Hi, Joyce. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon again. So, Ariel, at this point, I think we are all excited to hear the messages from our presidential candidates. I think we have to be very, very clear about this, that we tried to get all presidential candidates to send their video messages. They actually answered just one question, right, Ariel?
Yeah.
We asked them to answer one question ahead, and that's how they will prepare or they will construct their video message. And the question that we asked them to answer was, hold on, just pulling it up. How will you protect media should you win in the May 9 elections? Okay.
So it's clear that we
So
have
sa lahat,
invited
because
all
we
10.
asked everyone to, we invited everyone, but not all of them responded to the invitation. So we have two video messages coming from Vice President Leni Robredo, and the other one is former National Security Advisor Bert Gonzales. And of course, we have with us in the Zoom room, Calio de Guzman. So we will play first the video messages of Vice President Robredo and Secretary Bert Gonzales. And we acknowledge, of course, that the spokesperson of VP Leni is with us also here in the Zoom room and will join us later in the open forum. So, Kier?
Informed discourse is integral to any democracy. As such, government should be the foremost defender of the public's right to information. This means, among other things, ensuring an empowering environment for those who maintain the flow of information, those who seek the truth, and those who keep our citizens engaged in nation building through open debate. We will protect media workers from harassment. We will widen the spaces for dissent. We will welcome feedback and criticism and use this to refine and improve the workings of government. We will enact and enforce policies that promote transparency, those that have to do with the full disclosure of government contracts, for example, and those that uphold the freedom of information. Thank you, and I join you all in observing World Press Freedom Day.
The next one will be the video message of Secretary Bert Gonzales.
Good day, everyone. I'd like to consider or to think of media freedom in connection with the need of our people to have access to good, correct, and accurate information. Information that may probably be necessary when they make decisions in matters of policy that could influence the quality and kind of life they will have in society. I believe that when we are building a nation, when we are trying to put order in our society, government must do this in cooperation or with the participation of the people. And correct participation will not happen if there are no sufficient information. And I believe that the source of this information will be media that is free. There are a few conditions that I thought we can do in the part of government to make sure that the media remains free. Number one, given our conditions in the Philippines, the need for financial independence of our media outfits or networks is important. We cannot afford to see that our networks are forced to secure or to seek finances from interest groups, whether domestic or international. I am therefore thinking of creating a trust fund that will be a source of financial assistance to media networks that would like to modernize, media networks that probably would need initial assistance until they become financially viable. Number two, I think it's important when it comes to the matter of regulation that as much as possible, I would like to encourage the different media networks to organize themselves so that with their organization they can have some kind of a regulatory body that is mostly participated and led by them. Number three, I would like to probably equate media freedom as with the spirit of, instead of being compatible with government, maybe there should really be understanding and cooperation between government and the media, especially in matters of nationhood, love of country, building the nation. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Joyce? Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay, so thank you to our presidential candidates, VP Robredo and Secretary Bert Gonzalez, for sending their videos. Siguro, Ariel, bago natin tawagin si Calyodi, we will try to, for the benefit of everyone who is watching here, balikan lang natin yung mga sinabi ng ibang candidates were unable to send their videos today. Kasi alam niyo naman tayo sa media, we always get the resibo. Sorry, we would also like to ask all our participants to put themselves on mute unless you are called para hindi po tayo magka-interference. Okay. So I'd start with Senator Manny Pacquiao. Sabi niya, press freedom is the symbol of democracy. He was in Cagayan de Oro the other day, I think 2 or 3 days ago, paying tribute to our fallen colleagues. He also cautioned against being evasive or hostile to media. Balikan natin a few years earlier in 2018, he also said or proposed that bloggers should obtain government licenses so they would no longer hide behind anonymity in their posts. For former Senator Bongbong Marcos, of course, we all know he has skipped the debates set by COMELEC, but he has appeared in one-on-one interviews with certain media outfits and even with bloggers. He said that he is not keen on having a press secretary or a press spokesperson. He promised to be accessible to the media should he win and will hold regular press briefings. Si Senator Panfilo Lacson, last year he said, and I quote verbatim, ang freedom of the press hindi lang importante sa demokrasya. It is democracy itself. And he also promised to pursue freedom of information should he win in the May 9 elections. Because, FOI right now, we have it, but it's only for the executive branch. It's not yet a law. It's just an EO. Isko Moreno, the Manila mayor, of course, is very savvy on social media. Even before he ran, he was already very active on SOCMED and was very accessible. And he said, press freedom, quote niya ito sa Twitter, should be practiced. And any state should continue to respect that. So yun po yung ibang mga nakuhaan natin ng previous statements pertaining to press freedom and operations of media. And now at this point, I'd like to call Calyodi de Guzman. Maraming salamat po sa pagpapaunlak sa aming imbitasyon. At we are all eager to hear kung ano po yung polisiya at plataforma ninyo pagdating sa media freedom at freedom of expression. Calyodi, magandang hapon ho.
Magandang hapon. Okay lang ba ang Tagalog?
Yes sir, okay
Yes,
lang
sir,
po.
go ahead please, yeah. No worries.
Sige, ayokong mag-labor sa pag-English. Baka mag-nosebleed pa ako dito. Lahat naman siguro ng tao, pag tinanong mo, lahat ng tao, ng institusyon, grupo, pag tinanong mo tungkol sa press freedom, magsasalita ng maganda, katanggap-tanggap at kaaya-ayang pakinggang salita ng pagsamba, pagkilala, pagtangkilik sa karapatan para sa malayang pamamahayan. Walang tatanggi kahit sinong partido at magsasabing hindi kailangan yan. Lahat ay nagmamahal. Pero ang history ng ating bansa mula noon ay puro kasinungalingan, puro panluloko, puro panlilinlang, at umabot ngayon sa mga fake news ngayong maunlad ang teknolohiya ng komunikasyon. Bakit? Ako, gusto ko ang press freedom. At tulad ng iba, nung nagpanukala na gumawa ng batas, ng freedom of information. Gusto ko transparent. Lahat. Dahil importante yan sa pag-unlad ng ating lipunan, ng ating politika, ng ating ekonomiya, ng ating kultura, ng lahat ng bagay na kailangan natin para sa isang matinong pamumuhay. Pero hindi sapat ang mga rules, mga batas, mga institusyon, mga iba pang mga measure para pigilan yan. Hanggat nananaig sa ating bansa yung istruktura ng lipunan na gustong panatilihin nung nasa tuktok na ilan. Gagamitin niya ang kanyang lahat ng pera, ang kanyang kapangyarihan, ang kanyang impluensya para yung status quo ng kanyang paghahari ay manatili. Fake news, gagamitin niya yan. Kasi kahit nga pagpatay, gagamitin niya. Pag red tag, gagamitin niya. Pag supil, pang lahat, gagawin niya. Kaya hanggat ang istruktura ng ating lipunan ay pinaghaharian ng iilang dakot na mga bilyonaryo, malaking korporasyon sa ating lipunan at pinaghaharian yung milyong-milyong mamayan at gustong manatili yan, mananatili yung mga kasinungalingan, mananatili ang panluloko, lalaganap ang fake news, ang paglabas-tanga sa kalayaan ng mamayan. Kasi hindi lang naman ngayon may mga pinapatay. ng mga tagapagtanggol ng karapatang magsalita, magpahayag. Kahit sa panahon ni Marcos, kahit before pa ni Marcos, hanggang sa ngayon, kay Cory, kay Ramos, lahat yan ay may panunupil sa karapatan ng mamamayan. Mag-rally ka nga lang, hindi ka papayagan eh. Kaya, okay ang mga measure, okay ang mga batas, okay ang mga ahensya, pagpapalakas niyan, okay yan. Pero mananatiling kapos yan hanggat yung istruktura ng ating lipunan ay hindi nababago. Hanggat yung naghahari yung iilan sa tuktok ng ating lipunan, lahat ng taong maghahangad ng pagbabago ay susupilin. Kaisa niyo ako sa pangarap at ating adhikain na magkaroon ng totoong kalayaan sa pamahayag. Yun lamang at maraming salamat.
Thank you so much, Ka Leody. Maraming salamat po. At this point, I'd like to ask the indulgence of Ka Leody and Barry to stay on hanggang sa ating open forum. At tatawagin po muna natin ang ating panel of reactors. I think we will start with the JSAP chairperson, Assistant Professor Lucia Tang. Hi, Ma'am Lu. Good afternoon po.
Okay, ay naririnig na ho ba ako?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sige, what about yung PowerPoint? Can you see my Okay,
yes, po.
Maraming salamat. Okay, pasensya na lang. Uy. Hindi ko makuha. Ayaw niya
Slideshow po, ma'am.
Ayaw niya eh. Dali ha. Ayaw niya mag-slideshow.
Kasunod po nung animations. Pakanan pa po. Slideshow. After nung animation.
Wala eh. Ano kaya nangyari dito? Pero nakikita naman yan. Clear na? Baka kasi biglang mawala eh. Okay. Anyway,
maliit lang po, ma'am.
Maliit. Dali ha.
Ma'am, would you like to click yung home, pakanan niya? Slideshow po.
Wait. Bakit wala siya? Hindi ko makita. Teka, stop share ko muna.
Sige po.
Okay. Stop share. Okay. Ayun, natago pala. Okay, so good afternoon everyone. As a journalism educator, ayaw na mag-share. Okay. So as a journalism educator, usually in my joint class, when I require my students to submit a report or a paper, I would prepare a rubric, no? Sa mga nasa academe, we all understand what is a rubric. But what is the purpose of a rubric? Well, first of all, for me as a teacher, it helps me in guiding how to check and what to look for in a paper. And on the other hand, the rubric also helps the student. It also serves as a guide for our students, no? On how to get an uno, no? So if you want to get an uno, you should read the rubric of your teachers. So that is the number one rule in the academy. So I thought, since we will be voting or we will be choosing the president of this country, if you want to judge them based on their media freedom agenda. I believe dapat dumaan din sila sa ating rubric, di po ba? Napaka-importante na pumasa rin po sila sa ating rubric. Okay. So for me, personal ko pong kwento personal ko itong ginawa. Personal ko itong decision to choose this criteria. May criteria po akong pinili. Number 1, of course, is media freedom. Second is media pluralism. Third is media independence. And 4 is decent work. The first 3, media freedom, media pluralism, and media independence, ito po ay included in UNESCO reports. So doon po kinuha itong mga criteria na to. Pero itong decent work, ako po nagdagdag nito kasi tingin ko napaka-importante nito for our media workers. Okay. So, ayaw mag-click. Dali ha. Okay. So anong ibig sabihin ng media freedom? Okay. Pag sinabi po natin media freedom as a criteria, it refers to freedom from control, censorship, or harassment of the state and other powerful interests, including, of course, corporate interests. So in the digital age, it also includes freedom to publish and distribute content on the internet. And when we say media pluralism as a criteria, it relates to choice and diversity, and to issues such as concentration, centralization, and monopolization of media-related issues. So pluralism in both content and also in media ownership. And media independence, it refers to ability of journalists and newsrooms to carry out their work in the absence of outside pressures, political and economic pressures. It suggests the practice of journalism driven by public interest and professional ethics and protocols, including verification, fairness, and transparency. And ito naman decent work. What do you mean by decent work? When we use the term decent work, we are using the ILO's 4 pillars of decent work agenda. So ano yung mga to? It means the implementation of international labor and fundamental principles and standards on the right to work. Employment creation, trabaho. We need jobs for our media workers. Social protection, of course, is very important. And also social dialogue and tripartism. That means that we have to consult our media workers. Okay, now going to our, kasi po earlier, some of our presidential candidates have promised to send their videotapes, kaya nag-prepare ako. Okay, but unfortunately, some of them were not able to send their videos. So kay former Secretary Abella, I cannot judge him kasi wala naman po siya pinadala. But for Calyodi, i-reserve ko siguro huli si Calyodi. Ito po kay Secretary Gonzales, masasabi ko po, in terms of media, he did mention the importance of media freedom. In terms of media pluralism, he mentioned about the creation of a trust fund to support media. And I think this proposal can help encourage diversity in ownership. In terms of media independence, tingin ko rin the trust fund as a source of financial assistance will be very helpful in reducing the pressures on media establishments, to depend so heavily on advertisers. And then also media independence can also help promote media ethics and protocols. And in terms of decent work, I think the creation of the trust fund, and he also mentioned about financial viability of media. I think this can help generate more jobs for media workers and also help in providing better working jobs for, especially for our journalists, who are among the, I would say, one of the poorest paid workers in the country. And he also mentioned about the journalists or media workers' right to organize. Kay Kais ko, wala rin po ako masasabi. Kay Senator Lacson, wala rin po. For VP Robredo, in terms of media freedom, she did discuss about media freedom, informed discourse as integral to democracy. Sinabi rin niya yung the public right to know. And she also mentioned about protection of media from harassment. And in terms of media pluralism, yun din, no? Yun nga, yung public right to know. And in terms of media independence, she promised transparency and freedom of information. Medyo nakulangan lang po ako kay VP Robredo in terms of promoting the decent work agenda. So kay Calyodi naman, I think ang gusto kay Calyodi, in terms of media freedom, yes, he did emphasize the significance or the importance of media freedom. In terms of media pluralism, meron din siyang nabanggit. He also, in terms of media independence, he mentioned about FOI. Pero ako ang mas tumatak sa akin yung his opinion on the structural the structural defects of our society. Na yun ang pinaka-root cause why we don't have press freedom, or why we don't have people who in power will continue to use the media to promote their interests. And bilang manggagawa, I think siguro wala naman tayong pagdidebatehan with Calyodi regarding sa decent work. Yun lang po, maraming salamat. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Lu. At this point, I'd like to call our second reactor, the chairperson of the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines, Mr. Jonathan De Santos. Jonathan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, thank you. Ang pinag-usapan natin dito ay mga programa, no? Pero ang sabi nga, at kailangan ko na sabihin, no? Na tama si Calyodi, no? Na pag nagtanong naman tayo sa mga kandidato, syempre, lahat naman nila sasabihin, mabuti yan, o pagtatanggol natin yan. Ano? So, siguro to start, some background lang on kung nasan tayo ngayon. Since October 2021, when the month that candidates filed their certificates of candidacy, at least 3 journalists have been killed. The latest was Audrey Estrada, broadcaster in Lanao del Norte, was found dead in her house in March with 15 stab wounds. No? In December, si Jess Malabanan binaril sa sa loob ng tindahan nila, no? Sa Calbayog City, Samar. Tapos in October, si Orlando Dondon Dinoy binaril din, no? And shot and killed inside his rented apartment in Bansalan, Davao del Sur. Since June 2016, there have been at least 20 journalists killed. Medyo mahirap siyang bilangin. At least 20 ang bilang natin because there is sometimes some dispute whether the killings are work-related or not. No? I am glad na may mga kandidato na nagsabi na titigilan nila ang harassment of journalists dahil isa sa pinaka-problema kinakaharap natin, yung itong past few years ay rather hostile ang environment for journalists, hindi lang kasama na yung physical attacks, pero nakita na rin natin yung biggest attacks on the media, yung sa ABS-CBN at saka sa Rappler, no? Siguro hindi pa masyado nabanggit kung mabibigyan ng kung yung franchise ng ABS-CBN ay may babalik, no? Pero I think before, more than that, we need assurance siguro from candidates na hindi nagagamit ulit yung ganong panggigipit or yung ganong strategy, no, para magpatahimik na media. We recognize na may karapatan ang pamahalaan na mag-screen kunyari o na mag-hold ng hearings for franchises, no, and other regulatory processes. Pero yung gagamitin mo yung hearings pang gipit, no, sana wala nang ganun, ano. And I'm hoping na people will actually say, or candidates will actually say na last na yun, no. Binanggit din ang full disclosure of government contracts. Kailangan talaga yan. And we have been waiting for a freedom of information law for a long time. So yun siguro, hopefully an end to harassment against journalists, an end to using government processes, government regulatory powers para patahimikin ang mga mamamahayag. Tapos freedom of information. And again, tama si Calio, we do have to change kung paano ang media natin ngayon, no? Masyadong malakas ang political and economic interest sometimes. So hopefully then merong magbanggit or ng truly independent na media, no? Na magpapatayo tayo ng truly independent media, whether that's state-funded or hindi pa clear, no? Pero we really need a media na not as susceptible to political and economic pressure. And I'm hoping na candidates have programs for that. So far, parang hindi siya nabanggit, no? So yun muna for now, but hoping for a fuller discussion later during the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. Our third reactor is PPI's own Amalia Cabusao, the Vice President of PPI and Trustee for Mindanao. Hi, Ami. Good afternoon. Okay, I'm not sure if there's an internet issue with Ami.
Yeah.
Ariel, I think we will just come back to her in a bit. Ano, kung makasama siya sa atin. And at this point, I'd like to call Professor Roland Simbulan, political analyst and former UP faculty regent. Professor Simbulan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to everyone. Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. First of all, let me state that I consider it a privilege to have been invited to be a panelist and discussant in this World Press Freedom Day forum this afternoon. And I was going through some of the statements of the presidential candidates, and I agree with Yogi that if we were to ask any of these presidential candidates about some of the indicators as contributed by Professor Lutangi on media freedom, media pluralism, media independence, and decent work. These candidates, or any candidate for that matter, will always tell us politically correct statements. No? That's why I would value more in terms of assessing these candidates and how they stand on press freedom on their past, no? On their track record. We have seen some of the candidates who during martial law or during the Marcos dictatorship were part of the machinery. One of them was part of the machinery of repression as a military officer. Another one, of course, was part of the family who experienced the golden age of plunder, and which benefited very much from the suppression of our freedoms, very basic freedoms, especially the freedom of the press during the Marcos dictatorship. And I'm referring to the one who carries the family names of that dictatorship. We also have another candidate who, during the recent years under the present dispensation, amidst attacks on media practitioners, even became a spokesperson in trying to justify the repression. And of course, the former national security advisor and former national defense secretary under President Arroyo, although I know that he himself became a victim during the Marcos dictatorship, where he was hounded and became a fugitive. But during the Arroyo years, when he became a high-ranking defense official, he even helped encourage generals like General Palparan, who is now serving the life imprisonment term in Muntinlupa. So I would rather, as I said, I would rather look at the track records and actual actions of these presidential candidates. Did they contribute to the struggle for the restoration of democracy? Like, for example, Leni Robredo, who from the times that she was a student up to the EDSA years, and later on contributed to the consolidation of democracy as well as the widening of press freedom in our country. Let me state at this point that it is an index to how far media organizations have gone far, that they have united through this forum to defend and widen the space and access to information on those who wield power. A consensus not cobbled together through shoddy compromises, but rather one based on a recognition of a shared commitment to this country and a future founded on justice, free discourse, and transparency. At this time of the World Press Freedom Day, we also have to remember those who gave their lives for the cause of freedom and for freedom of the press in particular. Rights, including freedom of the press, have to be fought for, and these are usually not given voluntarily, especially by those in power or by states. We have a difficult road to walk before we can claim that victory for us all in this country is there. Justice, truth, integrity, humility, and freedom are values that act as beacon for us in our continuing struggle for press freedom and a better society. We are poised to see through our long battle the forces of truth, enlightenment, and democracy triumph. But this is not going to come easily. It is still an ongoing battle. Together, let us make one big push against the forces of darkness that have been confronting and struggling again, and against whom we have been struggling for so long. From our recent memory, the media, especially the democratic media, have played a role in assisting in the restoration of a democratic order, as in 1986, with a free press. Now it is social media being used to enslave millions in fake news that does not value facts and evidence. in order to roll back the gains of the 1986 EDSA People Power Revolution. The struggle for freedom of expression and press is linked to the struggle for democracy. Those who fought for the freedom of the press lent their voices to articulate the voices of the repressed, oppressed, and exploited during the darkest years of our nation. Freedom of the press is among the oldest and most valued of the freedoms of which many journalists and Filipinos have given their lives. It would be a slight to their memory if by our actions we prove unworthy of their sacrifices. I cannot overemphasize the value we place on a free, independent, and outspoken press in a truly democratic nation that we want to aspire for and uphold. This task will even be more important given the information manipulation and distortion employed by those who seek to undermine our society and capture the government with fake news and unaccountable governance. During the Marcos dictatorship, and this was during the golden age of plundering for the Marcos family, where our government banks like the PNB and other state banks were used as piggy banks. The freedom of expression, mass media, and the Philippine press became the biggest victim, with 464 media outlets nationwide, which were immediately closed during martial law. Journalists then were arrested, tortured, salvaged, or made to disappear. And of course, this is not to say that in 2009, this was during the time of President Arroyo, in one single stroke incident, 32 journalists were killed and many more died or were killed during the Arroyo administration. And as mentioned by the previous reactor, during the current administration, at least 20 journalists have been killed. Let me state that in closing, I would like to quote from the words of that democratic journalist, Thomas Paine, when he wrote, and I quote, "These are the times that try men's souls. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Yet we have this consolation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph." End of quote. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you, Professor Simbulan. Thank you to all of our reactors. I think Amalia really has a problem with her connection, but anyway, later if she's able to come in, we'll call her. At this point, sorry po, but before our open forum, I'd like to ask our tech team to play the video. Humabol po. Of Senator, may humabol. Okay lang yung humabol kasi hindi humarap.
Yeah.
To play the video of Senator Manny Pacquiao. And then we will proceed to the open forum. Yeah, we will be joined by Barry Gutierrez, the spokesperson of VP Lenny, also the media head of Senator Pacquiao, and the representative of Calyodi from San Lakas. After this one, go ahead please.
Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Maraming salamat sa Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines, Public Press Association of the Philippines Incorporated. Thank you for being part of the World Press Freedom Day Forum. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pagsilibran ngayon. Congratulations to all of you, and God bless and stay safe. God is good all the time. Thank you po sa inyong lahat. Pasensya na po kayo sa boses ko.
Oo, kung hindi lang po yun.
Hi, Joyce.
Hi, Gil, yan. So as I said, we are joined by the head of the media team of Team Pacquiao, Mr. Gil Bugawisan. He will issue the statement of Senator Pacquiao.
Yes, unfortunately, the senator is busy now because we are here in Kibawe for his people's rally and caravan. So maybe you can allow me just to read the message from the senator.
Yes, go ahead.
Just for your information, last Saturday, the senator led a wreath-laying ceremony at the People's Park Monument in Cagayan de Oro to honor our media workers who are risking their lives every day protecting press freedom. So basahin ko na lang po muna itong statement ni Senator. Okay lang ba?
Yes, Gil, go ahead. And
okay. Thank you to all the officers and members of the Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines and the Publishers Association of the Philippines Incorporated for giving me the opportunity to be part of your World Press Freedom Day Forum in time for the celebration of the World Press Freedom Day. Bilang pakikisa sa ating mga mahal na miyembro ng media, ay una na akong nag-alay ng bulaklak sa Press Freedom Monument sa Cagayan de Oro City noong Sabado. Napakahalaga ang araw na ito sapagkat ako ay naniniwala na ang kalayaan sa pamamahayag ay ang mukha ng demokrasya sa ating bansa. Sana po ay pagtulungan natin na ipaglaban at huwag nating hayaan na mabawing muli ang kalayaang tinatamasa natin ngayon. That's the statement of Senator Pacquiao. Joyce?
Maraming salamat po. I-correct lang po natin, sir, kami po ay Philippine Press Institute, hindi po kami Publishers Association. Magkaiba po yung PTI tsaka PAPI. Pero we appreciate the message. Wala po problema yun. Magkaiba po yung PTI tsaka PAPI. So, okay lang po.
I'm sorry kasi yun yung binigay na invitation sa amin.
Sige, walang
kaso. Pero klaruhin natin, PPI ito. Yeah.
Opo. Philippine Press Institute po, sir. Opo. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, we will have now our open forum. So we'd like to call, We'd like to call Attorney Aaron Pedrosa of San Lakas, representing Calyodi de Guzman. Also, Barry Gutierrez, the spokesperson of Vice President Lenny Robredo, and Gil Bugawisan, of course, is with us for Team Pacquiao. And the reactors can also join at any time, please, for our Q&A. We will ask first the questions that we have sa ating chat box. I'll start with Julie Alipala of Inquirer. She's asking, do we include vloggers in monitoring, especially since we are in the digital age? She remembers daw that si Jana Villegas, a vlogger from Cotabato, was late Maguindanao on April 15. Some vloggers naman daw are trying their best to deliver legitimate news. Ano pong paningin ninyo dito? Anyone could answer?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Attorney Aaron.
Yes, I was saying na medyo maingay lang yung sa background.
Okay.
Opo.
Ano pong tingin ng inyong kandidato in terms of including vloggers? Or meron bang policy in general for vloggers, magkakaiba B at V? Oo. Ano ang policy ninyo pagdating dito? Barry, would you like to take on this first? Anong position ni VP Lenny pagdating dito?
On vloggers in general?
Vloggers and bloggers. Iba sa trolls Ito yung mga legit na nag-effort naman to
Well, 'di ba, para ang tingin namin, they're like any other citizen, 'di ba? Meron silang karapatan to freedom of speech and expression. And just like any member of the general public, our attitude and our policy in dealing with bloggers or vloggers na humihingi ng information sa kay VP or sa campaign or sa aming opisina has been to accommodate. Yun naman yun eh. Parang while on the one hand, you have media which has, I suppose, a privileged status under our constitutional system, given that they play and are recognized to have an integral role sa ating demokrasya. As a general rule, kapag pinag-usapan natin ang access to information, ang mga usapin tulad ng transparency, kailangan ko ba mag-English ng diretso?
No, it's
Okay
okay.
lang.
It's okay.
Okay.
Oo.
Okay.
Mix na lang, mix.
Kapag kapag merong humingi ng anumang impormasyon, then the general policy for any public official and for any public office is to provide that information. So that certainly covers private citizens who maintain blogs or vlogs. Pero tingin ko, that said, it's important to make a distinction policy-wise kapag pinag-uusapan natin yung issue ng, I suppose, yung more specific role of media within our constitutional system and as a check within our democratic system. Obviously, the difference between an ordinary blogger and a recognized member of the free press is yung issue of standards and accountability. Kapag media ka, 'di ba? You are clearly bound by a set of ethical and in fact legal standards. And therefore, hindi ka lang pwedeng maglabas ng kahit na ano-ano. Right now, we do not have the same system and we do not have the same mechanism for ensuring at the minimum the truthfulness of things na lumalabas in private blogs or vlogs. In fact, this has been taken advantage of by a lot of, well, I suppose, political players in the sense na naglalabas din sila ng mga vlog or meron silang mga tao na gumagawa ng mga vlog, and the veracity and the truthfulness of yung mga sinasabi in these mechanisms, dahil hindi naman sila bound by the same standards of ethics and the same rules legally that apply to the media in general, mas merong room for, ano bang tamang term, creative interpretation ng katotohanan. And that's why we're suffering from this pandemic of disinformation, hindi lang sa Pilipinas pero sa buong mundo. So ibig sabihin, I suppose in short, walang issue kung ang pinag-uusapan natin ay access to information, both media and private citizens, whether or not they maintain social media accounts, blogs or vlogs is concerned. Pero when it comes to yung role that they actually play in the broader scheme na meron tayo, and media really has a very very important role in, sabi nga to quote Barack Obama, establishing a common baseline of truth, diba, in a democracy. I think that there should still be a clear distinction, meaning if vloggers are going to act as media practitioners, then they should be bound by the same standards of ethics and professional conduct and legal accountability as all other journalists are, because that is our guarantee and our people's guarantee that they actually work to bring out the truth, that they actually observe standards of fairness and professionalism when coming out with mga storya. And that's what we need when it comes to establishing that common baseline of information, so that our citizens can make informed decisions, and so that power and people in power can be held to account.
Yeah. Hill, I'm just wondering, ano ang posisyon ni Senator Pacquiao when it comes to bloggers and vloggers? Kasi I remember in 2018, he was pushing na parang dapat nagre-register yung mga bloggers. Hindi pwede yung anonymous lang kasi nagagamit daw masyado to attack or to, they hide in anonymity. That's what he said in 2018. Naka-mute pa Hill, sorry.
Yeah, okay. Yes, naniniwala kasi siya na dapat talaga yung mga vloggers, yung mga bloggers, kailangan kilala natin kung sino talaga sila. Hindi naman pwedeng, hindi natin alam kung sino yung mga taong yan and naglalabas sila ng mga information. Diba? As far as the senator is concerned, kailangan talaga ang ating mga government officials, the government itself, dapat transparent para hindi gutom yung mga nasa mainstream media sa information. Hindi sila, at hindi nagtatribe yung mga nagpapakalat ng mga disinformation at fake news. So kailangan talaga kung transparent ang leadership ng ating pamahalaan, transparent ang mga nasa ahensya ng gobyerno, kumpleto ang information na naihahatid ng ating mga mamamahayag sa ating mga tao. So hindi magta-tribe yung mga fake news tsaka yung mga nagpapakalat ng disinformation kung alam ng tao na may credibility ang mainstream media. Kasi whether we like it or not, nagkakaroon kasi ng medyo nawawalan ng kaunting credibility yung ibang mga nasa media. Well, may mga outlets na nagpapagamit din. So kailangan siguro na bantayan din ng ating mga nasa mainstream media ang kanilang ranks. Kasi kaya nawawala ng credibility because sasabihin ng mga tao, dito na lang tayo sa mga vloggers na to. Diba? So yun yung paniniwala namin.
Before I go to the second question, because the second question is for Calyodi eh. So Aaron, baka gusto mong tuhugin na lang later. Si Jonathan, I just want to quickly ask him, ang NUJP ba sa ngayon, minomonitor din ang cases of bloggers or vloggers who are being killed or being attacked? Or citizen journalists in general who are being attacked? Or wala pa yan sa talaan natin?
Thank you. Actually, good question yan. Pinag-uusapan nga namin yung, I think sa Maguindanao yun, yung napatay. Influencer kasi ang label sa kanya na police. Pero tinitingnan pa rin namin yung case kasi hindi naman din police dapat na mag-determine whether journalist siya or not. But in general, yun nga, if you want to be a journalist, if you want to parang do that kind of work, then you really do have to follow yung ethics and principles. No? So, yun, tama naman. Pwede naman mag-expand siguro yung definition natin of colleagues. No? Depende pa rin. At the end of the day, kailangan ay yung ethics and principles natin ay pareho. Yeah.
Oo. In other countries, hindi lang, well, dito sa atin masama kasi napatay siya kaagad. In China, we have a case of a citizen journalist who was imprisoned kasi she interviewed people using just her phone sa Wuhan dahil sa coronavirus. And then she was, I think, ang kinasa yata sa kanya is disturbing the peace. Parang yun yung ginamit na the case against them. So even our blogger friends are also susceptible to what do you call this, cases or attacks from the government. Kay Calyodi, this is for Aaron Pedrosa from San Lakas, from Elmer Bandol. Ano ang dapat gawin para maiangat ang antas ng manggagawa ng local media sa gitna ng pressure mula sa mga politiko at mga mayayamang negosyante? Aaron, the question's for you. Sorry.
Thank you, Joyce. Kaugnay muna dun sa mga bloggers and vloggers na kalutan ng B at saka B.
Oo.
Tingin po ng Team Calyodi, Partidakas ng Masa, welcome po yan because it is a manifestation ng active and involved citizenry. Especially sa day and age na uhaw sa information ng ating mga kababayan. Also, and sadly, this is also, you may consider it an indictment of mainstream media. Kasi may yung pagdami ng mga bloggers and bloggers putting forward quote-unquote alternative facts ay indictment nga. Parang bakit ganito ang binabalita ng mga media, hindi tumatampok yung mga ordinaryong usapin ng mamayan, which is a challenge to mainstream media. At pinag-uusapan kanina na media, and let's just put it in a general sense, ay may political context na may bias, lalo na yung mga nagmamayari ng mga malaking media outfits. And that is consistent dun sa pagtingin natin na kailangan baguhin. There is a structural problem and manifested in many institutions, including media. Yun yung...
Pero Aaron, sisingitan lang kita because I've always heard that change the structure of the media. Wala pang nakapag-put forward ng konkretong paraan kung paano basagin yung structure na yan.
Yeah.
Unang-una, even the politicians benefit from that structure regardless of your left or right or center.
Yeah. Yung isa dyan, yung...
We look forward to actual concrete suggestions from your end.
Yeah, ang isa dyan ay yung ownership mismo. Yung mga nagmamay-ari ng mga media outfits na karamihan nagmamay-ari din ng iba't ibang mga negosyo. At nire-reflect yung interest ng mga negosyo niyan sa mga binabalita, unfortunately. And this is not to cite any specific media outfit. If there has to be a limitation, I don't want to use the word limitation kasi media nga, you don't want to limit media. Pero yung participation ng private and business interests dito sa mga media outfits, yan yung magandang silipin, magandang tingnan. At may kaugnayan din ito dun sa paanong binabalita ng ating mga mahayag kasi minsan independent naman yung mga media outfits. Pero dahil sa standard of living ng ating mga mahayag ay napipilitan na kumapit sa patalim. Kaya nga sinusulong po natin yung 750, sinisulong ni Calyodi rather, yung 750 pesos minimum wage across the country. At bilang konkreto niyan, hindi lang ito parang propaganda, ay nagsalang po yung mga organizations sa sumusuporta kay Calyodi dun sa mga wage boards para i-challenge at napapanahon na in the context ng pagmahal ng presyo ng bilihin, etc. At mahalaga din para dun sa standard of living, yung pagtigil ng contractualization kahit dun sa hanay ng mga media practitioner na merong kang nagtatrabaho pero walang katiyakan sa kanilang pagtatrabaho. At and that insecurity of tenure is leading towards yung pagkapit nga sa patalim, paghahanap ng ibang mga rekurso para lang may tawid yung mga pangangailangan sa pang-araw-araw. And that could not be faulted sa ating mga practitioners sa media kasi yun yung realidad. Kailangan mabuhay, kailangan kumain. At anong pipiliin mo, katotohanan or pagkain? And that is sadly something that has to be addressed. And one way of addressing that is addressing the economic milieu. Kaya nga kailangan patatagin ang ating sistema sa pagpapasahod, yung security of tenure, yung pagtanggal sa mga manpower agencies, at isa pa, yung nagkocontrol din dun sa anong pinapahayag ng mga media. Napapanahon at matagal na natin sinusulong ng Calyodi, yung pag-decriminalize ng libel, ang pagtanggal ng cyber libel. Because this all affect anong klaseng pahayag ang ilalabas ng mga mamahayag. If it is limited, it is no longer a free press. At dahil nga sa chilling effect ng harassment sa ating mga mamahayag, the killings, yung pagsampa ng kaliwat kanang kaso, ay ang iba ay napipilitan na hindi isawalat yung katotohanan. That's why we have to defend press freedom. At yan po ang katayuan ni Calyodi. At hindi lang simpleng verbal antics na defend press freedom. We should prosecute those who are responsible for the media killings. At matagal na ito at wala pa rin katarungan para sa kanila.
Joyce, susugan ko lang yung binanggit ni Attorney Aaron kanina. This is just for him but for all the panelists. So, if you're familiar with the Media Welfare Act that has been passed as a bill, okay ba po sa inyo yon? Kasi it actually gives a cap or caps on salaries,
Yes.
ng mga journalists in general. Ang isang criticism lang doon, if you look at one of the provisions in the Media Welfare Act, is yung konsultasyon na dapat gagawin with the media owners kasi I'm for transparency and that business and the media dapat walang halong and that we look after the welfare of journalists in general, media practitioners in general. Pero paano yung dynamics ng owners, ng journalists at ng interplay nung pag binanggit nyo kanyang reportage na baka makaka-apekto doon sa conduct ng pagiging journalist nila for that matter?
Doon sa Media Welfare Bill, we have yet to read the contents of that bill. Pero rest assured, if that is something that is espoused by our friends in the media, yung ating, lalo na yung mga mahayag, journalists, reporters, and that is 100% supported by Calyodi.
Yeah.
Anything that comes, that is being proposed as a legislative measure for a sector, not only our media practitioners, should come from that sector. There has to be wide, publicized, robust consultation kasi hindi yan nangyayari. Ang ginagawa lang, gumagawa ng batas, at ang gumagawa ng batas ay may mga self-interest or may mga pansariling interest sa mga batas na sinusulong. Kaugnay nung, what was the second question again?
Yung media ownership
Interplay.
and the interplay, the dynamics, makaka-apekto yun.
Ito yung actually malaking problema na pinoproblematic ng like-minded candidates include like Calyodi. I do not know if this is shared by other presidentiables. But there has to be a mechanism to do away with the influence being exercised by business and corporate big corporations that shape the news, that shape the information being put out there. Kung ano ito, pagkunutan natin pag-usapan natin. Kasi this will definitely address kahit yung disinformation, kahit yung revisionism ng kasaysayan, kahit yung isang halimbawa lang, may isang insidente, may barilan sa isang mall, hindi babanggitin yung mall kasi sponsor yung mall or hindi sponsor o may katunggali dun sa nag-sponsor sa isang stasyon. And that for us is editorial censorship ng media. Tinatago niya yung isang fact which is relevant para sa ating mga listeners, viewers, etc. So kung ano man ang magiging mekanismo para dun sa pagtigil, pag-awat na dun sa corporate interest defining what the news is, what information is, ay pag-usapan natin. Pero we have also to say na ang position nga ni Calyodi, dahil nga dito ay lumalaganap yung mga alternative facts, lumalaganap yung mga sariling mga inisyatiba ng mamamayan na sila na mismo ang gumagawa ng paraan para magbalita. Welcome, pero wala, sinabi ni Barry kanina, while we welcome that, kailangan din yung pagbabalanse ng fairness, ng professionalism, yung fact-checking kasi yun yung nawawala. Kailangan may semblance ng ginagawa. The way that information is being gathered, collected by professional media people, yung mga nasa mainstream media.
Joyce, I'm going to rephrase my question a bit for Attorney Barry. There has been attempts to regulate media in the past. Kahit naman ongoing pa rin yun eh. Is a Media Welfare Act or any law for that matter that talks about economic freedom and welfare and safety of journalists towing on regulation?
I think yun yung talaga eh. That's the difficult terrain that has to be navigated dito. While I agree that there is a problem with vested commercial interests, particularly with regard to media ownership, the real question that we have to answer is, okay, so given that, what do we do? Kasi ako, meron akong hesitation sa giving an answer na hindi, government should step in and regulate. As if naman government regulation is going to solve a very, very difficult issue. I suppose the easier issue to address is really yung issue of media welfare. Diba? So, ensuring more equitable wages, working conditions, and so on, I think is well within the purview of legislation. So if we need to pass a law that specifically addresses yung interests of media workers specifically, and in particular, ito yung tingin kong kasi tingin ko ultimately ang solusyon magsisimula yan from the sector itself. Meaning it's the people who are in media themselves who have to lead the way in looking for a solution here. So, ensuring yung kanilang organization, ensuring yung kanilang empowerment, ensuring that they have a voice in management when it comes to the particular media institutions that media workers work in, I think is one of the first points na kailangan nating i-ensure with any regulation or legislation na ipapasa natin dito. So yun yung aming take. I haven't seen yung specifics of the Media Welfare Act. Although binugit mo, Ariel, may mga caps, parang that worries me. Okay sa akin ang floors pero caps is something else. I mean that's concerning. And ako hindi ko nakikita actually kung ano yung why the need for caps. Para namang bakit sobrang tataas na ba ng mga sahod ng media sa Pilipinas na kailangan talaga natin
Parang minimum.
Kung minimum.
They set the minimum.
Kung minimum, parang that's more or less acceptable. But again, kailangan nating idaan yan through actual feedback dun sa mga tao. Kasi again, binanggit ni Aaron kanina, minimum wage. There is a tendency whenever government enters a regulation na hindi actually reflective pa rin yung nabibigay ng mga wage. Ang layo ng minimum wage. For example, sa kailangan ng isang tao para mabuhay. If you just compare yung existing minimum wage with what NEDA says a typical family of 5 will require, medyo may kalayuan. So I suppose that's one thing that we need to address. Siguro isang comment lang on yung issue na ni-raise ni Aaron kanina. While nag-agree ako that there is a problem with bias in terms of ownership, and kanina nakita ko dun sa chat ni-raise yung issue na sa madaming lugar, particularly sa regions, ang may-ari ng mga radio station, for example, mga politiko, and therefore may built-in bias, di ba, na lumalabas. I still think that the most immediate concern right now is really yung delegitimization of, for want of a better word, mainstream media by increasing disinformation on social media. Yun yung point. And I don't completely agree that is due simply sa hindi credible yung media. 'Di ba parang corrupt yan dati. Therefore people have turned to social media citizen journalists for alternative sources of information. While that may be true to a certain extent, I think that underestimates the fact that sa totoo lang, moneyed interests, political interests, governments all over the world have actually found that by investing in social media operations, they are able to actually circumvent what existing accountability mechanisms they are existing sa journalistic professions. Diba? And that's not something na unique sa Pilipinas. Although mas malala dito dahil 'di ba madami ng studies na nagsasabi na patient zero tayo when it comes to the global disinformation pandemic. But all around the world, you have the phenomenon of media organizations, for all their flaws, still kahit paano merong some very well-established mechanisms for accountability, transparency, professionalism being attacked and delegitimized by social media operations funded overtly or secretly by commercial interests, governments, and political interests. And I think that we cannot simply brush that aside and say na hindi kasi kasalanan ng media yan. Hindi. Social media has actually opened up an entire new field by which people voters, citizens digest information. And the biggest problem with social media is diretso sa'yo di ba? And the algorithms on social media amplify your existing biases. Kaya nga ngayon, di ba? Parang you have people all over the world naniniwala sa flat earth, naniniwala sa anti-vaccine. Di ba? Parang feeling ko there's an unprecedented level of belief in unscientific and scientifically disprovable information right now, precisely because of the way social media is exactly structured.
Actually, they call that the global information disorder.
Exactly, di ba? And if you're talking about corporate interests, well, social media is probably one of the biggest corporate interests there is. And the reason why the social media platforms have been very, very slow, if not completely reluctant, to take more aggressive, proactive measures in combating disinformation proliferating on the platforms that they own is they earn from yung engagement.
Yeah.
Diba? Doesn't matter to them kung totoo ba yan o hindi o bumabagsak na demokrasya sa mga bansa o mga tao hindi nagpapavaccinate dahil naniniwala sila sa mga sinasabi ng mga anti-vaxxers because they earn from it. And ako, that's really the biggest threat that we should be dealing with. While I agree na hindi perfect ang ating media institutions, at the minimum sa media institutions, you have a long, well-established framework for accountability, transparency, professionalism. Sa kwartong ito, alam naman natin, may mga hausaw na media, pero kilala natin yung mga yan. Di ba? And kahit paano, they're not within the profession, they're not accorded the same level of credibility as more well-established, more professional organizations are. And if you talk about complete lack of accountability, you only need to look at all the troll farms and all the paid influencers, so-called, na ini-employ ng mga politiko o ng mga korporasyon, and mga gobyerno to see how much worse that particular system is. So, do sa message ka ni VP Lenny, disinformation is really a huge problem. To a large extent, it is undermining our democracy and how people make decisions within that particular. And I think that that's what we should be working with primarily with media friends and media allies. How to actually try and stem that tide of disinformation that is causing such grief within our own country and in many countries across the world, across issues and across interests.
Okay.
Gentlemen, marami tayong questions pa sa chat box, ano? So I'd like to ask you to... go ahead, Ariel.
Last, I think this just has to be said. While you guys talk about practical solutions in addressing welfare and protection of journalists, you talked about unity among ourselves and uniting our fund, etc. But isn't that also important and imperative for state actors to stop harassment, red tagging, violence, verbal violence against journalists, and anyone who's in authority, anyone who holds power, have to stop harassing media workers, right? And when we talk about laws and regulation, these are all, probably rhetorics, but these have been weaponized for so long a time. Yeah. Even pronouncements and declarations from any administration, for that matter. If this could keep on dragging and keep on as a practice, it's probably going to be worthless when you talk about practical solutions.
Gentlemen, you'd like to make a comment on that?
Oh, I agree. I agree completely. Sorry, I agree completely. In fact, isa sa mga points na hinighlight ni VP in her message, the stopping of harassment. And I think that the harassment comes in many forms. Obviously, the most egregious is, diba, physical harm. Diba? Threats talaga, papatayin, sasaktan, tatakutin, etc. And obviously, that really has to be addressed. Dapat itigil talaga yan, and the perpetrators have to be punished. The message has to be very clear. You don't do that kung ikaw ay nasa posisyon ng power. But apart from yung actual physical threats, there's also there are other things na pwedeng gawin, di ba? Parang the cousin of intimidation is co-optation, di ba? Talagang yung offers ng favors or pera, etc. That's really something and dito papasok yung sinasabi ni Aaron kanina na particularly vulnerable will be yung mga negosyanteng may vested interests, kasi di ba? Pwede silang takutin on the one hand sa kanilang commercial interest or alukin ng something beneficial so that they can they will tend to structure or to slant yung lumalabas ng kanilang organization to support whoever it is that is either offering the incentive or the disincentive. But the last thing na sa tingin kong mas bago ngayon and increasingly ito yung ginagamit at nabanggit ko na to kanina, it's really the delegitimization, di ba? Na increasingly, ang sagot kapag naglabas ang isang media outfit ng isang investigative report na, ito, may korupsyon sa ganitong ahensya, anong immediate response? Hindi totoo yan, fake news. Diba? Ganun eh. Yun yung point eh. And that has worked because increasingly, it has become the go-to tool of so many people in power, and ang kanilang pag-support at pag-back up dun sa ganong klaseng statements is a social media machinery that will then amplify yung sarili nilang message and attack and delegitimize yung taong naglalabas. And it's the era of gaslighting, diba? And blatant na pagsisinungaling, which you then back up with the social media machine. And that is alarming. Kasi one of the most important roles that media plays is really accountability. Diba? Yung takot na pag lumabas to, diba, there will be political consequences, legal consequences kung krimen ang involved. But increasingly ngayon, hindi ka na mahihiya eh. Parang ang gagawin mo na lang, you double down and then you get a social media army to attack yung naglabas ng story na yon and come up with your own version of the truth. And that's really, particularly if you consider the question, sino nagpopondo ng mga to? Diba? Is government money actually being used to fund yung ganitong klaseng mga counter media, social media operations in order to evade accountability and reduce the power of the fourth estate to actually hold power to account? So definitely I agree. There has to be, kung sino man ang magiging leader, there has to be an express and clear and consistent commitment, diba, to uphold the independence and freedom of media to continue to perform their constitutionally mandated role in our democracy, and to refrain from all levels of harassment, diba? Ranging from yung talagang outright na pananakit o pananakot to maintaining your own troll farm, diba? To counter and minimize the effects of negative media criticism. Kaya nga very, very clear yung sinabi ni VP Lenny. We will create an environment where criticism is welcomed, where transparency is the norm, and where media is actually free to perform its functions responsibly and professionally.
So no media laws for that matter. Okay, thanks Attorney Mary. Joyce, ang dami na nating mga katanungan.
Si Aaron and Hill baka did want to answer your question first.
Yeah, sure.
Would you like to add to that?
Yeah, sinabi na lahat ni Barry, but I agree dun sa sinabi po na kanina. Violence is actually the end of discourse. Kaya kung umaabot na sa punto na pinapatay ang ating mga media practitioners, sa ating mga kapatid sa industriya ng pamamahayag, ay may mali. Ang isang gobyernong may tinatago, ang gobyernong kinakampihan, yung kabaluktutan na nangyayari sa ating lipunan, gagawin ng lahat para patahimikin ng media sa iba't ibang forma, hindi lang sa paraan ng karahasan, pwede yung pinabanggit nga, co-optation, yung buying your silence, etc. Pag-delegitimize, yung ginagamit niya na term ni Barry, or yung pagpapakawala ng mga troll farms na pinupondohan ng Estado. Mali lahat yan. That should not be countenanced at hindi role ng gobyerno yan. I think as I read somewhere that the relationship between media and the state should be adversarial. Pero adversarial does not necessarily mean violent. It only means na may level of independence so much that criticism is the language being communicated. Kasi ano pang magiging role ng isang bantay para sa katotohanan kung sinusupil yung mga nagbabantay para sa katotohanan? Anong magiging role ng ang parang mangyayari niyan, babalik tayo sa panahon na ang sinasabi ng gobyerno ay yung katotohanan. At ayaw natin yun. Kailangan tuloy-tuloy yung pamamahayag kasi maraming katotohanan ang hindi sumusulpot, hindi lumalabas. Kung ang lumalabas lang na naratibo ay mula sa mga nasa kapangyarihan.
Thank you, Aaron. Hill, very quickly, would you like to answer?
Yes, naniniwala kasi kami na kaya naman kumakalat, nagiging successful yung mga troll farms, tsaka yung mga peddlers of fake news and disinformation. Kasi nga, yung ating mga nasa mainstream media, gutom sa information. Hindi nila na ibibigay ng maayos yung data kasi sinusuppress yung flow of information na dapat hinahatid sa ating mga mamamayan. Kaya naniniwala kami na ang susi para malabanan ang disinformation at fake news is a transparent and accountable government. Si Senator Manny Pacquiao, napaka-transparent na tao. Bukas sa lahat at even as the media covering him, talagang sinasagot niya lahat ang question. Kahit masakit pag minsan, sinasagot niya yon. Dapat ganun po ang patakaran ng ating mga nasa gobyerno para hindi tayo nauuwi sa sitwasyon na nagkakasakitan. Yan lang po.
Thank you, Hill. Ariel, we have a lot of questions sa ating chat box. So if I may ask the gentleman to answer as quickly, as briefly as possible so we can take all of these questions. From Emmanuel Navarro, ako nasasagot nito para mabilis. Meron daw po bang batas to protect every journalist? Wala. Kung may batas, di sana hindi tayo nag-usap ng ganito. Ang meron lang po tayo is the SOTO law, the SHIELD law, which allows us not to divulge our sources unless, of course, may kulatila yan, unless national security issue yung sinulat natin. Okay. This is for Barry. Quickly lang, Barry, ha? How will a Robredo administration deal with the opposition repropaganda of divisive narratives? From Kaiser Joshua.
Anong ibig sabihin nun?
I think baka kung halimbawang kayo ay manalo, paano ninyo i-handle ang opposition? Kung
malaya silang magsalita, malaya silang magpahayag, 'di ba? Walang repression na nagagawin, but definitely we will strive to foster an atmosphere of information exchange, 'di ba? Na may adherence sa katotohanan. Ibig sabihin, there has to be a greater amount of accountability for mga tao na nagkakalat ng fake news. But insofar as free discourse is concerned, free to criticize, free to object, etc. Yeah.
Okay, I think this is from Caroline Lee. She mentioned the balance between funding and ownership of media and the independence of media has been a continuous discussion. Tapos it has also been observed that the state's dual role as both an owner and regulator means it is a player in the game as well as a referee and a rule maker. What are ways by which an independent, state-owned media can be realized? Do you want to answer this? And then I will answer this also quickly. May gusto ba sumagot?
Kailangan magpasa ng bagong batas, 'di ba? With respect to a charter for right now it's PTV4, 'di ba? Yun yung I suppose we can learn from yung lessons ng ibang bansa. For example, you have BBC, which is state funded. NHK, but which yung management and yung direction with respect to content, 'di ba? And commentary is respected, diba? They act as independent body. So even if the state funds it, the government does not control it, diba? Yun yung point. So you have to do that, and obviously the key thing to here is also you have to install leadership dun sa institution na yun which will have that mindset. Ang problema kasi natin, di ba, we have so many independent organizations affiliated with the government na supposedly at is institutionally independent. But at the end of the day, dahil yung mga taong nauupo dito ay merong mindset of utang na loob, beholden sila dun sa tao, 'di ba? Parang they don't really steer yung course ng institution towards one of independence. So, diyan papasok yung role talaga ng mga media practitioners themselves, 'di ba? Tutulong, 'di ba, na mag-install talaga, ensurein yung independence and practice yung ganong klaseng institutional independence.
Actually, go ahead, Attorney Aaron.
Sa kay Calyodi, ang pagtingin po dyan, lalo yung state media natin, ay hindi sa punto de vista na parang ilalagay mo siya sa hanay ng mga media outfits na may pagmamayari ng mga malaking korporasyon. Kundi true to its name ay magsilbi para sa komunidad, magsilbi para sa taong bayan. Hindi sa politiko, hindi sa pagpapalaganap ng naratibo ng kung sino nakaupo o nakaluklok sa kapangyarihan. Kundi gagamiting plataforma dun sa mga balitang hindi regular o hindi lumalabas sa mga mainstream media. Halimbawa, kung may mga presensya ang state media dun sa malalapit sa lupa ng mga katutubo, patampukin yung usapin ng mga katutubo. Dun sa mga usapin ng panunupil ng karapatan ng mga manggagawa. Yan, isawalat yan. Kasi hindi lumalabas. Walang espasyo para sa mga naglalakihang mga mainstream media news outlet. Kung meron man, 1 minuto, 30 seconds, which is not commensurate dun sa kalaki ng usapin. Ang lumalabas kasi, din nagdidikta kung anong lumalabas na uri ng pamamahayag or balita, ay kung ano yung pwedeng i-sensationalize. What may be necessary dun sa pangangailangan, sa pang-araw-araw na sitwasyon ng ating taong bayan, hindi sensational yan eh. In fact, boring. Kaya hindi binabalita. Yun yung mas mahalaga. Bakit may kontraktualisasyon? Bakit mababa ang sweldo ng manggagawa? Bakit marami ang, sa kabila ng maraming mahirap, may ilang bilyonarong hindi nagbabayad ng wealth tax? Itong mga usapin na hindi tumatangpo kahit sa sinasabi nating mga independent media. This is where the state will come in. But this is not the state as the monolithic state. It should be community, ang taong bayan mismo, ang kaagapay sa pagbabalita. At ito ang kaibahan sa direksyon na gustong tahakin ka.
So just to add a bit lang if memory serves me right, sa NHK dati, kasi people pay taxes for NHK, diba? Pero parang BBC, hiwala yung management. Parang at one point, they felt that NHK was so pro-government, people actually stopped paying their taxes for NHK. So may ganung nangyari sa kanila na parang wake-up call din sa NHK to shape up. From Adel Chua of the UP Joint Department, magkakaroon ba ng efforts ang inyong administration to reach out to media owners to rally them on the importance of providing decent working conditions for their employees and consciously fighting disinformation as an organizational policy? Kasi yung journalists alam, pero yung owners baka hindi o baka kailangan ng konting push.
Sagutin ko na because I will have to leave shortly, Joyce.
Yes, sir.
Sa unang punto, yung working conditions, it is not something that is to be negotiated with the owners of the media outfits. That has to be a policy. Polisiya dapat ng gobyerno yan. Kaya malaki ang papel ng gobyerno sa pagtatakda. Halimbawa, magkano dapat ang sinasahod ng manggagawa sa mass media? Hindi pwedeng simpleng mag-usap na lang tayo. Kasi that would be case-to-case basis. Pag nag-ibang administrasyon, ibang usapin ulit. At kasama na dyan ang iba pang mga usapin. Halimbawa, yung pag-union, yung pag-stamp out ng contractualization, etc., to better the working conditions of our workers in the media. At hindi yan something na pag-uusapan lamang. Mahalaga ang papel ng gobyerno. Sa disinformation, ganun din. Mahalaga ang papel ng ating education system at this is where we faltered. Kaya maraming naratibong lumalabas. Hindi na tinuturo, tinanggal nga. In fact, sa kurikulo yung kasaysayan. At dahil dyan, ay lumalabas yung iba't ibang kasaysayan, iba't ibang alternative truths na kung gusto natin, if you may want to call that. Ibig sabihin, malagang role din yung education system, yung mga government institutions na may kinalaman dun sa tataguyod ng ating yung kasaysayan. That includes the National Historical Institute, the Department of Education, the Commission on Higher Education, etc., etc. Kailangan dyan palakasin para hindi na umabot na naghihintay na lang tayo sa anong sasabihin ng media. The strongest foundation is education. And the other social institutions echo what has been learned in the socialization process. Kasi if you have a citizenry that is enlightened, educated, magtatanong din, tama ba ang binabalita? Mukhang mali yata to. On that note, I will have to leave na po, Ma'am Joyce.
Sir Aaron, bago kita pakawalan, ito yes or no lang na sagot.
Okay.
And then I will also ask your other friends here. The criminalization of libel under your admin, yes or no?
Yes.
Sanctions,
FOI.
FOI.
Yes. At hindi lang FOI ni
Legislated.
Yan. That it should be legislated.
Okay. Right of reply bill.
Right of reply bill with the objections to it ng mga media practitioners, no.
Okay.
Okay. And lastly, so pang-apat ito, sanction sa mainstream media na nagpa-publish ng misinformation, disinformation, or fake news.
Tricky. Any sanction would be censorship. So we would have to say no.
Okay. Thank you. On that note, we will excuse Attorney Aaron Pedrosa from San Lakas and of course representative of presidential candidate Calyodi.
Thanks, sir.
Maraming salamat po. Oo.
Ingat. Oo.
Parang biglang nag-fast talk tuloy tayo.
Fast talk, oo.
Sabi, alis na to.
Kasi ito yung wrapping up the open forum na.
Oo nga.
We'll ask the same questions to the other representatives.
We will allow, maybe si Hill would like to go first. Hill, we answer the 4 quick questions. The criminalization of libel, yes or no?
Criminalization, yes.
Decriminalization.
Decriminalize. To decriminalize it.
Yeah.
No. Kailangan may accountability rin ng media eh. The media should be accountable also. Kaya nga tayo may libel, di ba? Kasi para merong may mechanism para yung mga nagrereklamo. Kasi if you decriminalize, lalong lalala ang karahasan sa mga media. Kasi sasabihin nila, ba't pa ako magdedemanda? Wala namang mangyayari sa demanda ko. I'd rather hire somebody to di ba? To hurt someone or hurt a media man na tumira sa akin. Kaya ako, personally, hindi ako pabor sa decriminalization. Dapat there should be accountability para yung media naman mas responsible. Hindi ako pabor sa decriminalization.
Okay, that is an ibang pananaw. Of course, that we respect the view and it's interesting. Maybe we should also look into it, What are the other 3? FOI, legislated. Hindi EO lang.
Yes, dapat talaga yan. Dapat talaga may freedom of information. Kaya nga tayo sinasabi namin na kaya talaga lumalala yung disinformation tsaka fake news. Kasi walang yung mga media natin hindi nila maibigay ng tamang information. So dapat yung information ng media na binibigay sa ating mga mamamayan ay truthful at based sa mga documents. So the only way to do that is to supply them with the documents, supply them with the right information. Kaya pabor tayo doon sa freedom of information. And I think that will be one of the priorities of Senator Pacquiao if he gets elected.
Last, right of reply. Yes or no?
Hindi. It's still dapat hindi yan nire-require. You can reply if not. If you don't want to reply, di okay lang, walang problema. The media can publish whatever they want basta binigyan ka ng pagkakataon na mag-reply. Kung hindi ka naman nabigyan ng ayaw mong sumagot, di walang problema. Kasalanan mo na yun.
Last one here. Sanctions on media who will propagate fake news or misinformation.
Well, based dun sa kung merong kaso, dapat kasuhan. Kung fake news, kung may libelous yung ginawang fake news, dapat ma-file ng libel. Di ba? Pero if yung fake news lang na dapat kailangan managot ka sa mo. Dapat accountable ka sa lahat ng sinusulat mo, accountable ka sa lahat ng mga sinasabi mo, being members of the mainstream media. Kasi kaya nagta-thrive yung mga bloggers and bloggers na ginagamit ng mga politicians kasi nga nawawala yung accountability. Nawawala yung accountability ng mga kasamahan natin sa media.
Thank you, Hill. I'll go down to Barry. Same 4 questions. Yes or no? A bit of an explanation if you wish. Decriminalization of libel.
Yes, kasi hindi naman ibig sabihin ng i-decriminalize mo, wala na accountability. Civil cases will always be available.
FOI legislated.
Yes, in the 16th Congress, pareho kaming principal author ni BP Lenny ng FOI bill. In addition, she's also said that the first EO she will issue if she's elected president is the full disclosure policy. So even without request, the general policy for government will be to make public information generally available.
Right of reply legislated.
No, we trust yung media organizations to adhere to the standards of fairness and balance without need for a legal requirement to ensure a right of reply.
Sanctioning the media if they publish or propagate false information, disinformation.
Again, tingin namin no need for any new criminal legislation on this. There are existing standards. May have enough laws to hold accountable yung ganyan. In addition to accountabilities within the professional sphere. Diba? Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, napakadami pa po talagang comments at questions sa chat box. May I just kindly ask Hill and Barry to look into the chat box and see if there are questions you can answer personally na lang muna because we have to keep the time. Maraming salamat Barry, maraming salamat Hill, maraming salamat kanina kay Attorney Aaron who not the late but umalis na kasi kanina na maagang umalis, iniwan tayo. At this point, we would close now the open forum. I think we have entertained a lot of questions and got a lot of insights from the representatives of our presidential candidates whom they sent to be with us today. And Ariel, at this point, we will now go to the
Declaration.
Media Freedom Declaration. This will be read by the auditor of JSAP, Professor Christian Esguerra. Actually, si Ian has a question, hindi na natin naitanong pala sa chat box.
Ibitahan niya na lang niya sa programa niya.
Christian, ask them to answer that sa program. Christian, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Joyce. Actually, yung tanong ko sa kanila bago ko basahin. Hindi nyo naman kailangan sagutin nyo yan.
Pag-isipan na lang nila.
Pag-isipan nyo lang. Nawala. Wait lang.
Nakita ko yan sa chat box. Ano dyan?
And if your candidate wins, can you assure the public that he or she will abolish any government-sponsored troll farms and will not engage in payola transactions with journalists regardless of platform? Ayan. Okay, so basahin ko na po yung statement from the Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines Incorporated. We, the undersigned media educators, practitioners, concerned individuals, policymakers, and members of civil society hereby declare our commitment to the protection of media freedom and access to independent information. Whereas freedom of expression is a fundamental human right as stated in Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, which states that everyone has the right to freedom of opinion, expression, and this right includes to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. Whereas freedom of expression is a fundamental prerequisite for all other freedoms, including freedom of information and human rights. Whereas Section 4 of the Bill of Rights of the 1987 Philippine Constitution states that no law shall be passed abridging the freedom of speech, of expression, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and petition the government for redress of grievances. Whereas media freedom and access to independent information are vital elements to peace, democracy, transparency, and accountability, sustainable development, and gender-responsive growth. Whereas the free flow of word and image in the print, broadcast, and online platforms allow people to make informed decisions and participate actively in public discussions about matters that affect their lives. We hereby commit to do the following. First, ensure the Filipino people, regardless of gender, political beliefs, social status, and ethnicity, enjoy freedom of speech, association, peaceful protest, and access to independent media and information. Work in local, national, and global levels to enhance the protection of journalists' safety, stop the killing of media workers, and end impunity. Eliminate all forms of intimidation and harassment on media workers, and work for the decriminalization of libel. Hold the government accountable and guarantee the public's right to information and access to government data. Recognize the role of free and independent media in preserving peace, democracy, social justice, and sustainable development. Fight disinformation, misinformation, and propaganda, and encourage citizens to be responsible news consumers. Provide decent work and social protection to media workers, which are vital to their human development. Address the problem of access to digital technology among media practitioners and citizens, while at the same time pursue sustainable policies in the media. Signed on the occasion of the World Press Freedom Day celebration on May 2, 2022 here in Manila. The signatories are members of civil society, the Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines, or JSAP, the Philippine Press Institute, and concerned citizens.
Okay, thank you Ian sa pagbasa ng ating Media Freedom Declaration. Actually, yung iba pong candidates took the time to sign it. I-sign the Media Declaration. In fact, si Secretary Bert, hinanap pa niya talaga because nasa attachment natin now there is a declaration. He asked for a copy of it. So,
messages, so yeah. So that we can include your organizations or your individual commitment to this ongoing campaign on press freedom. Not only because this is a forthcoming election, pero dapat tuloy-tuloy. At saka dapat mag-resonate ito, Joyce, no?
Yeah.
Hindi lang sa media, hindi lang sa industriya natin, hindi lang sa academic sector, pero sa lahat ng sektor, di ba? Ng ating society.
To all sectors of society talaga. Napaka-importante. At this point, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today to celebrate World Press Freedom Day. Actually, bukas pa we are advancing our commemoration today.
Meron ding bukas.
meron ding bukas.
Kasama din yung PPI doon.
Kasama rin ng PPI.
With other media organizations. So.
Maraming salamat sa lahat ng nag-attend. Salamat sa lahat ng presidential candidates na nagpadala ng kanilang video messages at ng kanilang representatives. Salamat kay Hill. Salamat kay Barry, salamat kay Aaron, si Calyodi, of course, for taking the time to be with us today kahit na saglit lang siya kanina kasi alam niyo naman very busy na mga kandidato natin sa kabi-kabilang sorties, ano? Dahil hanggang Friday na lang ang kanilang kampanya, Friday or Saturday, after which by Monday we will all be casting our ballots already. So this is Joyce Pañares, Seminar Director of the Philippine Press Institute, and I turn you over now to our Executive Director, Ariel Sebelino.
Thanks, Joyce. Thanks to our panelists. Salamat po sa lahat ng naki-engage sa ating programa ngayon. And tawag nito, pang closing na thoughts. Media freedom is freedom for all. It's not a privilege na ibibigay sa atin ng gobyerno, but we work hard for it, we deserve it. At ang ating pagtugon sa patuloy ng engagement amongst all sectors ng society ay hindi magsisimula sa isang diskusyon about democracy and press freedom. Kasama dito ang mga issues and mga usapin na merong kinalaman sa buhay natin bilang Pilipino. At we're not just talking about democracy here, we're talking about our lives as we progress, as we take on or receive another leadership, di ba? Tatanggapin natin kung ano yung liderato meron tayo. Pero paghihirapan natin proteksyonan ng ating demokrasya, ang ating freedoms as constitutionally protected. Hindi po dito magtatapos ang ating usupin. There are programs ng PPI na patuloy pa rin. So all you have to do is to visit our page and also the page of Seidel Foundation for more details on our programs that are happening every month. Merong weekly, merong monthly. Madami po sila to mention. And also please visit the website of Philippine Press Institute. Hindi po kami PAPI, but Philippine Press Institute. PPI po. It's ppinewscommons.net. Any reportage on the pandemic and the elections, andun po dun sa PPI News Commons natin. So maraming salamat po ulit for joining us today, and we hope to continue discussing things about media and meron pang iba na usapin. Sama-sama po tayo. And if you want to get your certificates, all you have to do is to respond to the survey questionnaire. So
wala na raw, sir. Wala na raw survey link.
Wala ba? Oo.
Matik
So,
na to ngayon.
matik na. You will get your certificates pala. So, hindi nyo na paghihirapan yung survey questionnaire. But you'll
Kailangan
get
na
your
lang daw,
certificates.
Ariel, ng group photo.
Yeah.
Bilang
So,
patunay.
sure. So, we'll have a group photo. Maraming salamat po sa inyo lahat. Ayun, group photo tayo. And thanks to our production technical team, sila Care, sila Atibe, sila Risa, Priscilla, sila Rog. JSAP, of course, syempre. At wag banggitin din natin in cooperation with Internews and USAID. While this is being supported by the Seidel Foundation, we also have other partners as well supporting this program today.
Salamat sa JP na andi dito. Salamat kay Sir Roland Simbulan for being part of our panel of reactors. Sa lahat po ng mga kasamahan natin na dumalo dito. So,
At yung mga eskwelahan,
yung mga iba dito nag-cover,
Oo. Yung mga schools na student natin, salamat po sa inyo.
From the
At
academy.
yung mga foreign participants natin from Thailand, from Taiwan, so sorry about yung ibang parts you didn't understand, but you can watch the proceedings again by our YouTube channel, Philippine Press Institute YouTube channel. Ayun, ready for our photo.
Okay po, ready po tayo. Wait lang natin sila, sir. Go open na. Okay.
Isang waki daw.
3, 2, 1. Okay.
Ariel, waki. Hindi ka nag-waki.
Ay, no. Waki na kasi ako.
Isa pa. Okay.
Challenge to, how to do waki habang nasa Zoom.
Si Attorney Barry tsaka si Hale dapat mag-waki din.
Oo nga, Barry. Waki ka din. Ganyan, no? Finger heart.
Hindi yan waki din. Cute yan, hindi yan waki. Dapat gumawa ka ganun. Mga ganyan.
Alright.
Ayun, good luck po sa ating mga kandidato.
Good luck sa bansa natin sa May 9.
At ingat pa rin tayo sa ating mga gatherings. So, importante po yun. Maraming salamat again to the Seidel Foundation and the Journalism Studies Association of the Philippines sa inyo pong suporta sa ating programa ngayon. See you next time, everyone.
Thank you po.
Thank you.
Thank you.